Mr. Albert was 67 years old. He had worked in a loud factory for over 40 years. His hands were strong but worn, his back was weak and bent after years of lifting and moving heaving things. When he turned 65, he retired, just like he always planned. But life did not wait. His wife passed away only months later. She had a dream, to run an ice cream truck together after retirement. She loved summer, laughter, and soft serve with rainbow sprinkles. He used to tease her for always choosing the colorful kind, especially putting colorful sprinkle on the top of ice cream. Even as an adult, when he found an old ice cream truck for sale on the edge of town, he bought it. The truck was old and slow. The paint was chipped. But he cleaned it, fixed the engine, and painted it soft blue and white, her favorite colors. He drove it every summer since. He never played music loudly. Just the light jingle of the bell. Some days, he could still hear her humming from the passenger seat. The kids called him Ice Cream Grandpa, and he liked it. He gave out cones, waved at babies, and always kept rainbow sprinkles stocked, even if most kids did not ask for them. This summer was hotter than usual. The streets shimmered by noon. The sun pressed down like a heavy blanket. He wiped the windshield, filled the freezer, counted the cones, and started the truck. It coughed, then settled into its low hum. The sky was sharp and blue, the smell of dry grass filled the air. He was not sure why, but he turned off his usual route and took a different road. The wheel felt light in his hands, as if something quiet was guiding him. He drove past tall trees and wide lawns, then he saw it. A small park. Empty, except for one boy. Sitting alone on a swing. The boy held a red popsicle. It melted down his wrist, his face was still, his shoulders low. Mr. Albert parked nearby. Engine running. He watched. The boy did not move, did not laugh, did not look around, just stared at the ground, and wiped his eyes with his sleeve. After a few minutes, the boy stood, tossed the popsicle into the trash, and sat again. Mr. Albert opened the freezer. He did not know why. But he reached for a cone with rainbow sprinkles. Maybe because it felt right. Maybe because it was her favorite. He stepped out into the heat, and walked across the dry grass. The boy looked up, surprised, but did not speak. Mr. Albert offered the cone. The boy took it with both hands, gentle. Like it was something rare. He nodded, then looked away. No smile, no words. Just the quiet sound of licking. Mr. Albert walked back to the truck and sat behind the wheel. He looked into the mirror. The boy was still there, eating slowly, carefully. As if the cone meant more than just ice cream. And maybe it did. The next day was even hotter than the one before. The sun rose early, and the air was already thick and heavy with heat. Mr. Albert wiped sweat from his neck and filled the freezer with fresh cones. He felt drawn to the park again. Like something inside him told him to go there. When he arrived, the boy was already sitting on the same swing. The swing hung still, no movement in the hot air. The boy looked up slowly, watching the leaves flutter in the warm breeze. Mr. Albert parked his truck close by and opened the freezer carefully. Without thinking much, he reached for the cone with rainbow sprinkles, the same kind the boy had chosen the day before. It was also the kind his wife always picked. The boy stood up slowly and walked over to the truck. He did not say anything. His eyes were quiet, but held a strange kind of hope. He took the cone gently, with both hands, and gave a small nod of thanks. Then, he went back to the swing and sat down. Mr. Albert watched from his seat, noticing how the boy licked the ice cream slowly, as if savoring something rare and precious. It was a small moment, but it filled Mr. Albert with warmth and a strange feeling of peace. The boy stayed a little longer that day than before. When the cone was gone, he folded the wrapper carefully, and placed it in the trash. Then he stood and walked slowly away down the path, shoulders still heavy, but head a little higher. Mr. Albert looked after him, and thought about how the boy reminded him of someone he loved. Someone who was gone, but still felt close. The heat pressed down around them both, but in that quiet moment, something soft and light touched the air. For 3 days, the rain came heavy and loud. Thunder rolled across the sky, and lightning lit up the dark clouds. The streets were wet and empty. Mr. Albert stayed inside, near his truck in the garage. He cleaned the counters, wiped the windows, and checked the freezer seals carefully. He thought often about the boy in the park. Not many kids came alone like that, and not many chose rainbow sprinkles without saying a word. His wife used to hum soft tunes during storms, small songs without words that filled the house with calm. On the third morning, the clouds began to clear, and the sun returned slowly. Mr. Albert started the truck, and drove to the park again. When he arrived, the boy was there, sitting on the swing. This time, he was humming softly, a quiet tune that sounded familiar. Mr. Albert paused in the truck. The song was not exactly the same, but it felt close, like a memory carried by the wind. He opened the freezer, and picked out the rainbow cone again. The boy stood and came over to the truck. He stood beside it, eating slowly, looking at the green grass and tall trees. Mr. Albert said nothing, but the air between them felt full of old feelings, like something lost was coming back in pieces. When the cone was finished, the boy reached into his backpack, and pulled out a folded paper. He placed it carefully on the service window, and then walked away quietly. Mr. Albert opened the paper and saw a drawing of the ice cream truck. The lines were soft and careful. The roof colored blue, and tiny rainbow sprinkles dotted the top. In one corner, a small heart was drawn. The same shape and style his wife used to draw on birthday cards. Mr. Albert's hands trembled slightly, as he folded the paper and placed it inside the glove box. He sat back in the truck and breathed slowly, feeling something gentle settle inside him. After that day, the boy came to the park every afternoon without fail. Sometimes, he sat on the swing. Sometimes, he waited on the bench, legs crossed, eyes watching the trees move in the wind. Mr. Albert always made sure to have a cone with rainbow sprinkles ready, already out of the freezer before the boy even arrived. It became a quiet routine. Other children came and went, laughing, shouting, chasing one another with sticky fingers and candy-colored tongues. But the boy was always alone, always calm. He never made a sound, yet something about his presence filled the space around the truck, like music without words. Mr. Albert never asked his name. The boy never spoke. But each day, their exchange felt more familiar, more settled, like two people who had long ago agreed to meet without needing to say it out loud. One afternoon, the sun was softer. Clouds hung in the sky, like slow-moving sails. Mr. Albert opened the side door of the truck, something he did not often do. The boy stepped forward and peeked in. Slowly, without asking, he climbed the small step, and stood just inside, looking around. His eyes moved over the containers of sprinkles, chocolate sauce, and waffle cones, as if memorizing each one. Then, he reached for a napkin on the counter. He folded it gently into a triangle. Then, smoothed it flat with 2 fingers, slow, careful, and quiet. Mr. Albert stood still, breath caught. That small motion was something his wife used to do every evening before dinner. She would fold the napkins just like that at their kitchen table, one by one, her fingers graceful and steady. It was such a small detail. But, watching the boy do it made something ache inside him. He did not speak, he did not want to break the moment. The boy placed the folded napkin neatly at the corner of the counter. Then, as if guided by instinct, he reached into the toppings shelf, and rearranged 2 jars that had been out of line. Just a small shift, barely noticeable. Mr. Albert had kept everything just the way his wife imagined it when they talked about the truck, tidy, balanced, calm. The boy moved as if he already knew. As if he could see the shape of her dream through the walls of the truck. He stayed longer that day, when 2 small children came up. The boy gently handed them their cones, and gave them paper towels from the holder. He even rang the small brass bell softly, once, when another girl approached. Mr. Albert watched quietly, heart full of warmth and something else he did not have a name for. It was not sadness, it was not joy, it was something between the two. The boy said nothing, but his actions spoke in echoes. Mr. Albert did not understand how or why, but each time the boy moved, it felt like someone he had loved was nearby, not in the air, not in the light, but somewhere just behind the moment. When the boy stepped out of the truck, he turned once, and gave a small nod. As if saying thank you for letting him in. Mr. Albert nodded back. No words were spoken. None were needed. The days were getting shorter now. The sun still burned in the afternoon, but the evenings came quicker. The air felt cooler in the mornings. Some children had already stopped coming. School was near. Mr. Albert noticed the change in the wind. The slower pace of the neighborhood. Still, the boy came every day, right on time, with his quiet steps, and calm eyes. One day, he arrived holding something different. It was not food or paper or toys. It was a small photo, worn at the corners, the kind you kept folded in a wallet for years. The boy walked up to the truck like usual, took his cone with rainbow sprinkles, then held out the photo. Mr. Albert took it gently. It showed a man and a woman with a small boy between them. The picture was faded, but the boy's eyes were clear and familiar. They were his eyes, the same shape, the same calm, the same soft light behind them. Mr. Albert did not ask any questions. He looked at the picture a little longer, then nodded once, and gave it back. The boy tucked it back into his pocket, and stepped aside. There was no rush. Mr. Albert opened the glove box, and took out a photo of his own. It was his wife, sitting on the front bumper of the ice cream truck, taken the day after he painted it. Her smile was full of dreams. She wore a red scarf, and held a cone with rainbow sprinkles. He set it next to the boy's drawing, the one with the tiny heart on the back. The two items sat together in the glove box, like pieces of a puzzle, not yet finished, but fitting somehow. That afternoon, the boy did not eat the cone right away. He sat beside the truck on the curb, turning it in his hands. The sun was low, painting gold across the pavement. Mr. Albert stepped out and joined him, sitting down slowly. They watched the sky in silence, sharing the warmth of the fading day. A breeze passed between them, carrying the scent of grass and sugar. The boy took one slow bite of the cone, then smiled slightly, not big or wide, but enough to change the shape of the moment. Mr. Albert saw it and smiled back. He did not know everything about the boy. He did not need to. Some connections were not made with words, some stories were written in gestures, glances, and small gifts placed quietly at the right time. As the sun sank below the trees, the boy finished the cone, wiped his hands, and stood. He did not speak. He never did. But his presence lingered, like a memory that refused to leave. Mr. Albert watched him walk away, slow and steady down the path. The swing moved in the breeze, creaking gently, as if whispering something soft and old. The last week of August arrived quietly, the leaves on some trees had started to curl. The sky was still blue, but it felt higher, more distant. The heat no longer pressed as hard. The streets were quieter, most children had returned to school. The sidewalks were empty again. Mr. Albert moved slower now. His knees stiffened in the morning. His hands ached when gripping the steering wheel. He could feel the end of the season, not just in the air, but in his bones. He knew this summer would be his last behind the wheel of the ice cream truck. He did not feel sad. Just ready. On the final day, he polished the truck carefully. He wiped the mirrors and swept the floor. He restocked the freezer with just enough cones for one more round. Then, he drove slowly to the park. The boy was already there. He stood under a tree, holding something wrapped in paper. He walked toward the truck with calm steps, and handed Mr. Albert a small box, taped neatly and painted soft blue and white. Mr. Albert opened it slowly. Inside was a tiny model of the ice cream truck, handmade from cardboard and glue. On the roof were tiny rainbow sprinkles made from colored beads. The wheels were drawn in black marker. It was rough, but beautiful. On the bottom, written in careful handwriting, were 3 small words: "Dreams never melt." Mr. Albert froze. His wife had said those exact words years ago, when they talked about what they would do after retirement. They had laughed, half joking, about opening an ice cream truck, and driving through neighborhoods filled with children. "Dreams never melt," she had said, handing him a cone one night in their kitchen. He had never told anyone that, not even their daughter. Mr. Albert looked at the boy. He stood quietly, eyes calm and distant. The air between them felt like a page had been turned. A final page, soft and full of meaning. Mr. Albert placed the tiny model beside the drawing with the heart, and the photo of his wife, 3 small pieces of memory resting together inside the glove box. Then, he stepped out of the truck, and stood beside the boy. Together, they looked at the empty park. The still swings, the fading sunlight. A wind moved through the leaves, cool and steady. The boy turned to leave. He walked slowly down the path. As he always did. He did not wave, he did not turn back. But something in the way he walked said goodbye in a way words never could. Mr. Albert watched until the boy disappeared beyond the trees. He climbed back into the truck, turned off the engine, and let the silence settle around him. The season had ended, but something greater remained. A memory that would not fade. A presence that would always return. A ghost, not of fear, but of love, still sitting quietly beside him, licking rainbow sprinkles from a cone that never melted.